And we're live, and this is Kristen Nedopak. She is a force to be reckoned with. She's the chief person in charge of the Geekie Awards. She has also created her own web series. You costume, you produce, you direct, you write, you do everything. So we're here at the university classroom. You may or may not be able to see. Some of the students are behind me. They actually sit around in a U shape, and we're here. So those behind me, if they're on, raise your hand if you give me permission to videotape you. All right, good. Kristen, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? It's bright and early.
I'm excellent. Here it's a little overcast and drizzly, but it's all good. It's still technically warm, and we're excited to have you here.
Thank you.
So. Well, let's start off with you do so many different things. How did you just get involved to begin with? What?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think we all sort of do this when we're children. We kind of know what we want to do in life. And I think what I wanted to do changed a little bit over the years and years and years I've been alive. I actually started off as an actress. When I was younger, I was in love with theater. I was in love with making costumes, those two things, very, very specifically. And I started off, I think I was in like 4th grade when I wrote and produced and started my own little mini play. And my mom and I kind of read this book and we made a play out of it. And we performed it in all the different classrooms for all my 4th grade class. And we kind of incorporated every one of my friends, and we made costumes, and that was probably the first thing I ever produced. And I've just been that sort of spirit ever since. So I started off as an actress, and was in about 30 or so, 40 maybe independent films in Seattle. The whole time I was acting, I actually was working in corporate America as a designer, so I sort of have both the corporate background and the entertainment background, and that comes into play very importantly here. And then I moved to Los Angeles when I was 30. I turned acting into hosting, and because of my corporate experience as a lead designer, as a project manager, I sort of fell into producing. It was a very easy transition for me to work, go from corporate, managing people, managing projects, to doing that in entertainment. And then I've sort of been doing that ever since. I created all of my own shows starting in about 2009. Being a host, one of the things you have to do is have your own brand. You have your own passion. Long were the days where you just showed up and were cute on camera. You actually have to be an expert in something when you're hosting these days, especially if you're creating your own stuff. And that's sort of how I fell into the geek world. Is that something I've always been passionate about and always loved? And when I had to pick a topic to talk about as a host, I was like, well, yeah, Star Wars, or fantasy, that's my favorite thing. And all of the work I've done since really revolves around a combination of those skills of being an actor, being a host, being a producer. When you do all of those things, you tend to learn how to do the other things, the directing, the writing, the shooting, the editing. And so those sort of combined with my passions, which were sci-fi fantasy, created this world around me of sort of the perfect job that I love. And that's how the Geekie Awards was formed, is I was a creator making my own stuff, and I realized there's no award show for people like me. And boom, that thing came out of my pocket. So, and I'm still working on it. I'm moving on to hopefully some other cool things as well, but that's kind of how it starts. I think it starts with, what are you the most passionate about? You might be passionate about kids, you might be passionate about saving the world, you might be passionate about the environment. Really go with that, and everything else will fall into place along the way.
Excellent answer. Very, very cool. Well, you have certainly said a lot. So the students here, they're writer, director, cinematographer, editor, animator candidates. They're pursuing their dreams. In terms of intersecting with the people of Hollywood or the business people of Hollywood, how do you? I mean, there's negotiations, there's communications, there's talk, there's emails and phone calls and all of that.
Too many emails.
Yeah.
Too many. Learn. What did my husband say once? He's like, "Oh, email. Yeah, like you don't know how to do that." I would first and foremost learn how to email, especially if you're going to be a producer. That is pretty much like the majority of your life. We live in an age where we can work with people all over the world, all over the country, everywhere but in the place that we live. I telecommute. I work with a lot of people from all over, and so my life is very digital. There's a lot less meetings. There's a lot of meetings, but there's a lot less meetings than you think nowadays because it's way more efficient to email people, for people to work off site, for their, not to have an office and overhead. So if you're working sort of on independent projects, that's a lot of what you can expect is communication, and that is probably the single most important thing you could ever learn in any field ever. But in terms of working on the business side, I would say it really depends on what you want to do and who it is that you want to work with. If you are a creator, if you're a producer or a director or a writer, you're going to be having a lot more of those meetings where you're trying to pitch yourself, where you're trying to sell your ideas. Again, if you're going to go digital, it's a completely different experience than if you're going to go film or television. Film, television, those two are completely different. So it really depends. And if you're an editor or you want to say below the line person, which is still extremely important, you probably have a lot easier time finding a job. I would definitely learn those skills. Editors make a lot of money, and it's a very easy thing to pick up work as. So it really all depends. I mean, if anybody has any specific questions about certain areas, I don't necessarily have a huge background in pitching film. I more work on the television digital side, so I can talk a little bit about that, but I do have a lot of friends that are filmmakers.
But that's what we do want to talk about. We want to talk about your area of expertise.
Great.
And you brought up, again, so many things. And if you have questions, please just raise your hands. I mean, don't wait for me to invite you.
There's one hand right behind you on the other
There you
side.
go. Who is it?
I have a question. You were talking. Hi, my name's Justin.
Hi.
You were talking about learn how to email properly or something like that. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Absolutely. So what I mean by learn how to email properly, it's not necessarily a format of how to email. It's more that we just live in a day where communication is very, very, very important, and a lot of it happens digitally. So when I say learn how to email, just be conscious that a lot of communications for projects are going to come through email. A lot of my time is actually spent, when I'm doing my show, I get hundreds of emails a day. And not only do I have to respond to all of them, I have to be expedient about responding, especially because I'm the boss. I have to be expedient about communications. So I've got email on my phone, I've got email on my computer, I've got email in my brain in the middle of the night. So you really just have to learn how to keep up with communications, because a lot of times it does happen digitally. But then also, a lot of times you're not speaking to people in person, and you have to learn how to interpret emails. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think people get very emotional when it comes to texts and emails. Do you ever do that where you're having a conversation with somebody and somebody says something and you take it the wrong way because you're not in person? Mm-hmm. A lot of times that does happen, especially in email. So never be afraid to pick up the phone. Sometimes I'm like, hey, that's not what I meant. Okay, bye. And I mean, these are all very realistic things that happen. I can't tell you how many times people angry text me and they think I said the wrong thing because I'm a very blunt person, and I have to call them and say, calm down, that's not what I meant, you're interpreting it wrong. But then that's basically what I meant, is that a lot of your digital communications are going to happen on email. Right now I have 8 or 10 different email accounts. And the other thing is time management, because there is going to be a lot of email. I think anyone that works in any sort of managerial role in any company knows that they spend the majority of their day in meetings, doing stuff, and then at the end of the day, they got to spend a few hours going through all of those communications as well. So it's just something to be conscious of, that it's not all meeting, being on set. Depending on your level and your role, there is a lot of communication involved, especially if you're a producer. 100,000%. Your job is 50-75% email. But it's not bad, because you're responsible for a lot of stuff.
Just to add on to that, like how you're messaging people, is it very formal? Is it dear so and so, this, and thank you, blah blah blah, or is it like this and then send it out? You know what I'm saying?
It really depends. I have on my team I have to be very conscious of people's personalities. I guess as a boss, you always have to be conscious of people's personalities. So I have a producer, and her and I know each other so well that we will write one-line emails. Like if we need something, we just say, hey, send me this document. I mean, that's all you need to write because it's fast and she knows what I'm talking about. She's not going to get offended. If I'm writing a business proposal, it's very much dear so-and-so or hello so-and-so. I always end my emails with best, Kristen. You just want to be sure that you're positive and formal in the situations where you need to be. But I will say overall, if you are pitching people, if you are emailing people for the first time, keep it as short as possible. Considering what I just said about people getting hundreds of emails a day, to the point, very nice, brief, to the point, what it is that you want, what do you need from them in a very nice way, and that's it. People that send me emails that are paragraphs, sometimes I delete them. I'm like, okay, I'm not even going to read that because I don't have time right now. It's not related to what I'm doing. It's a pitch. I'm not even going to read it, and that's unfortunate, but that's exactly what happens. Very, very to the point. And I can always send you guys some examples. It really depends on who you're emailing. If it's somebody on your team, you can just be like, hey guys, I'm short. I don't have time.
That's cool. And if you want to send samples, email me and I will get them to the students. That's great.
Sure.
Anything that you want to send. I have a follow-up. What about getting through spam filters? Do you ever have a problem with that? And or your subject headers?
Yes.
Getting it read.
Spam filters. I use a Mac, so for some reason I don't get a lot of those emails. I have about 8 different emails that are coming into my Mac mail at once. Google, I have a bunch of Gmails. That kind of handles spam a lot for you. Sometimes some things seep through, but I really haven't had any issues because I use a Mac and I go through Gmail a lot. If you have your own personal email, again, that's why I send it through my Mac Mail because Mac Mail tends to pick it up. And when I actually go look at the personal email account, there's so much spam in there. One of the things you do have to look out for is you will get I don't know if you guys do, but I do. I get like 1,000 newsletter things a day. And don't be afraid to tell your friends, like, I love you, but I can't sign up for your newsletter because when you're in a project and you're working on something, to wake up in the morning and have like 20 of your emails be, selling things, newsletters, just unsubscribe to all of that. So it's always nice to have like a junk email that you use. I have like a Hotmail that I use to sign up for things because whatever goes to that email, I'm not going to use anyway. And a lot of it's that junk. In terms of
why would you sign up?
What's that?
Why would you sign up?
Well, oh no, I mean it's things like you buy something and they automatically sign you up. Or I will tell you, doing the Geekie Awards, I don't sign up for anything, but doing the Geekie Awards, press gets a hold of my, oh God, if you do press for anything like Comic-Con, you gotta have separate mail. Press people get a hold of your email, creators get a hold of your email, they sign you up without asking. So all of a sudden at the end of the show, I'm getting, hundreds of emails and things like, where did this come from? And unfortunately, I have to go through and unsubscribe all of those. In terms of subject line, again, very to the point and brief. And subject is a great way to track emails. I hate it. I'm a huge communication freak, so I despise it when somebody sends me an email with subject line, hey. And then we go into all these great details. I'm like, what was that email called that was about this business proposal? My subject to my team is exactly what we're talking about. Business proposal for Geekies for so-and-so network or whatever it is we're working on. That way I can find those emails easy. When people see the email, they know exactly what it is that I'm talking about. So I really just try to be very, again, brief and to the point. And the subject should really always be tied to what you're talking about. And the other thing is, if you change topics, it's okay to create separate emails. Sometimes people go off on tangents, and I say, I'm going to take this to another email because I will not be able to find this information in this email chain. So I'm going to start a new email, and that way I can search by this when I need to find this conversation later. The other thing is, for me, again, I'm like probably the most anal retentive person you've ever met. so I'm a producer, comes hand in hand with the job. I organize all of my emails into folders, and that's why I love back email and Gmail as well, is that every single thing that I have, I've got, like, for every project, I've got like 100 folders for sponsors I've talked to, sponsors I've sold to, sponsors I haven't heard from, the business side, the writing, the script, all of those things have separate folders, and that way, when I'm going to find information later, because there's so much of it out there, I can easily go into the folder and look through that and catch up. So there's a lot of things there for you guys to see. We can have a whole course on emails.
Apparently so. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about getting through to the connections you want to make and getting past their spam filters? Do you have advice on that?
Honestly, what works best.
Or using subject headers to get your important email read by them.
Yeah, a lot of times, if possible, if you are referred to someone by someone, that's the best way to get in touch with somebody. It is really hard to cold call, cold email. I have to do it all the time, and I think maybe 50% of the time, maybe less, I get emails back because they do what I do. They go, I don't know this person, delete. It's just the nature of the business.
Right.
We are in a business where your career is built around who you know, about how good you are, what you do, how reliable you are. That's part of being good. Communication, honesty, all of that. And then also who you know. I mean, a lot of it is who you know. And so a lot of us spend time finding people who know people that we want to know in a very organic way. You just kind of end up building your network that way. And so if you do know somebody that knows somebody or somebody's referred you, put that in the subject line. You know, Bill so-and-so referred me to you / proposal, whatever it is that you want to write. But that kind of gets their attention. And that should be the very first line in your email. Hello, so-and-so, a mutual friend, Bill, suggested that we discuss this, da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, here's some of the information. That way, right off the bat, for me, the people that I know, I surround myself by very good people, very professional people, and I know a lot of times when they refer me to somebody, that the other person's going to be awesome, and that they're thinking about what I need, that person's probably somebody worth talking to because this other person knows me and they know what I'm working on. So if I see that, I most of the time, probably 100% of the time, email that person back. At least if I don't need them at that point, I say, nice to meet you, let's chat. If we don't have anything to talk about, I'll hold on to your information and I'll think about you when I do need somebody like you. But I would say, if we're going to get on the topic of breaking in, personal relationships, building relationships in person, very, very important before you email people because you have a much higher chance of them emailing you back. And that's why it is important to go to events and literally just, start befriending people, being yourself, and really just creating actually authentic relationships with people. And that's how I've gotten everywhere in life is, I don't want to say who I know in a really, it just sounds weird. I don't mean it in the sense that I say it, and I mean that I'm a very friendly person and I help a lot of people and I work with a lot of people, and therefore I just end up knowing a lot of people over a period of time. And then we all sort of pool together to help one another.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That
Other questions? Because I have one. Ask away. These students are in the Midwest, and you work online and digitally a lot.
Yeah.
The necessity for them to relocate at any point in a career, whether it's to LA or Georgia or New York or Texas or New Mexico or wherever it might be, I'm sure is part of what they consider. So in your line of business, in online media and television, what advice would you give them about they finish school, or even now they can begin certain things? What?
Absolutely. I do think at some point, it depends on what you want to do. If you want to work in film and television, you are going to want to go to hubs where people work a lot in those different areas. And again, it depends. If you want to be a production manager, your job is on set. So you have to go to a place like Atlanta or Vancouver or wherever that has a lot of work. If you're a director, writer, and you're creating your own work, there's nothing to say that you can't start doing films where you are right now. And, you know, anybody that's in the creative field really does sort of have a packed reel and a calling card. And so you can start working on low budget things, no budget things in your own hometown. And I think a lot of times what people do is look at, this is a crazy scenario because he actually did a lot of horror before this, but look at Peter Jackson in Lord of the Rings. When he did Lord of the Rings, he took that opportunity to go to New Zealand and hire everyone there and do it there because that was his home. I mean, it definitely fit the environment that they were looking for. But a lot of times, Robert Rodriguez, a lot of times people will start with stories that they know that revolve around their life growing up or their point of view of where they're at right now. And that sort of gives them that individuality rather than just moving to a town and saying, I'm here to work. This industry is very much about showcasing your work. Again, if you're an editor, you could probably go online and say editor and get a lot of work everywhere. Or, you know, some of those type of jobs. Like as a designer, I could get jobs anywhere. I could work with somebody in Cuba because they just saw my portfolio and are like, great, cool. But again, in the creative fields, I would personally start with starting creating your own content. We're sort of in that day and age. Right now I work mostly in digital. We're in that day and age where kids are creating their own content online. People are huge with YouTube and all of these other sites that help you create your own work. And what it serves, it's not just for YouTube stars. It's not just for people that want to be on camera and want to be their own personality. That's obviously a big thing right now. But it's also for people like filmmakers. I have a friend who does a ton of shorts. When he's not working or when he's in the middle of writing something, he goes and he produces a really, really simple, cheap short that's funny, that's totally his brand. And what I mean by brand is the way that he writes, the way that he directs, the way that he tells stories. And he just puts it together with his friends. He has camera equipment. He has buddies. He gets like a few $100 together for food or whatnot. And he does something really simple. And he continues to put that work out there in the location that he's at while he's working on other things. So I would definitely recommend start doing short films, start doing little mini videos. And that's the way that you're going to build yourself a reel as well to show other people. And again, it really depends on the area that you want to work in. Directing, editing, totally different things.
Awesome. Well, many of these students already have projects. I mean, they're between,
Good.
you know, freshmen.
I'm assuming you're all aspiring filmmakers or creators.
No, they're all everyone except one who's a design student is a film major at this point.
Do the 48-hour film festival. That is one of the coolest things you could do. That is so easy and work with one another. That's the thing. If all of you are directors, writers, whatever, work with one another. Say, hey, I have a project. Could you guys help on these other areas? And then I'll do that for you. And really build your own team. Because you'd be surprised who you go to school with, who you start your first job with. Those are all of the people that you remember. And those are the beginnings of your network. Don't think that your network starts out there. Your network is in this room right now. Those are all the people that you should be talking to. And you're going to keep in touch with everybody. And I'll tell you, I'm working with somebody right now that I went to high school with. And they found me and they were like, oh, we really need you. And I know you because we went to high school. And they hired me for work. And he's one of my clients now. It's fantastic. So you just never know. Start your relationship building now. That's what I would start doing now. I would start looking to see what's happening in your immediate area. And then how can you tell stories that are unique to where you're at in the Midwest. I grew up in a tiny town in the middle of, Western New York, and I was doing crazy, weird stuff there in tiny townville.
Awesome. Very cool. Question? While you're thinking, I'm going to ask. How has it changed? In other words, I read it. I didn't read it. I saw on Facebook an article about stop calling them web series or something. It was webisode. People didn't like that term. Then it became web series. Now I'm not sure what the article was about, but it seems like they're wanting to say either television or online media or something along. How has it changed? I mean, you let me backtrack.
Sorry. My voice.
That's okay. Let me backtrack and say,
Yeah.
you started off by saying follow your passion. One of the things that you did is you did create web series. You created fantasy
Yeah.
shows. So I want you to talk about that. But how has the business changed in that arena from being able to get your, I mean, it's still easy to get online, but how
Yeah.
easy is it to get views, or what do people need to do in order to let their brand get their brand seen?
Again, it is very dependent on what you want to do, right? And I'm going to always be very specific about these answers. So if anybody has a very specific example, we can talk about that. Because there's a difference between, well, first of all, back up to talk about what you were just mentioning, is the digital world, there's always been people online making videos since the internet happened. I mean, when people got cameras, and then YouTube was there way before YouTube was popular. So there's always people making their cat videos or whatever it is they were doing. I think before YouTube got big, we were making some comedy stuff. And I'll tell you, I actually had a whole series of comedic sketches. And the reason why people went online was, number one, because they didn't have to go through networks. Previously, to get anything out to anybody, you had to go through a television network or you had to be a filmmaker. That's it. There really wasn't, or you were making, industrial videos but still, those were going to be played on television, local cable, whatever. So people really wanted to find a way to get their own stuff online. Hey, I created this fun story. I want everyone to see it. I don't want to have to go sell it to a network because this is just something I'm doing for fun or a way for me to get out there. So that's number one. Number two is that you have that direct tie to your audience, and that's the most important thing. That's why these YouTubers are so big, because their personality, I mean, some of them are as big as like Kim Kardashian, but that girl's out there doing her own thing, and she's spending millions of dollars on hair and makeup and media and press and publicity just to get that big. Well, then you've got PewDiePie over here with like 30 million followers on YouTube, and that dude is literally sitting in his house playing video games. And he just has personality, and he did it in a way that people loved it. And so really anything goes, but that's why the internet that's why digital media became what it became, was because it was a way for people to individually put their brand, and again, when I say brand, that could be your own personality, that could be your style of writing, that could be your style of filmmaking. That's all of your brand. Quentin Tarantino has a completely different brand than Martin Scorsese when it comes to filmmaking. And that was their way of putting it out there. But I think the web series term came about because, of course, the first thing people thought was, well, I want to be on television, so I can make these short videos and then I can make them into a series. And that was the first thing that started to get replaced was series. But now it's just an open platform for anything. There are a lot of short films online. There are a lot of things happening. So in terms of, and that's just a little bit of a history there, in terms of getting yourself out there, I'm just an advocate for just start doing it. Don't worry about the views, because you don't know who is going to see what. I did a little cute video about, I was hosting my own show. I was getting like a few hundred views, like maybe 1,000 views, which is like nothing on YouTube these days. And I actually covered an event, and it's an event called Fairy World, because that's the world that I live in. And the people that run the event saw it, and they thought that I was so adorable that I am now the master of ceremonies for this show. Wow. 3 times a year, they fly me out to all of the shows. I announce all the bands. I'm like the face of the show because I made this one video that they saw online. So you don't have to think about it in terms of millions and millions of views. The only reason people go for views is to make money off ads, and that has to be your full-time job. So, again, I would encourage you to just start making things and putting them out there, whether it's on Vimeo. Vimeo is huge for films, by the way. When I scout films for the Geekie Awards, I go to Vimeo, and I find a lot of amazing stuff, and people will post their stuff on there while they're doing film festivals, trailers even, and it's like, I want to watch that. So the views don't really matter at that point. If you're just trying to get your work out there, online is a way to show it to people, and then you never know who's going to find it. And you never know, you're always going to need to have that link to show somebody when you want to get work anyway. Now, if you want to go the view route and you want to make ads, that is a full-time job. It is the equivalent of, let's say you want to be a director of film. You want to be Martin Scorsese. You're not going to do that tomorrow. It's probably going to take you, they always say, what, like at least 10 years? Well, it's the same thing with digital content. A lot of those people, if you go back and look at their followers, they've been doing this since 2004, 2005, 2009, and now they have 1 million subscribers. It's not like they just started. There really is no viral video thing, strategy. Like that thing just happens or it doesn't. And usually sometimes it's like, you know, people out there pushing it for press. So it is a full-time job to build that up. And then your business model is making videos every day to get ad sales. So be very conscious about that. If you want views, that's really what you're getting in for, is you have to keep up with that. A little example about how I got views on some of my stuff is I'm like a business person. So I always think about, I'm a creative person, but at the same time, how does this make sense? What is it that I want to do with this? What am I doing? You know, I don't just post things online just for funsies. I really just don't. And there's always some sort of plot that I have. And one of the things I did was I said, okay, this YouTube thing's cool. I want to build up my subscriber base because that's going to help me in the future. That's all part of my brand is, oh, I have so many followers on this and I have so many subscribers on this. So how do I do it? Well, I'm playing this awesome, you know, fantasy video game. I'm going to make a parody of it because parodies of video games seem to be huge. So I took an existing IP, I made a parody of it, which is also very popular, and then I put that on YouTube and I ended up getting millions of hits. But there was a formula there, and I purposely did it to get subscribers on my channel, and it happened. So I wasn't out there putting original content going, oh my God, I don't have millions of views, because that's not likely that that's going to happen. So again, like I know that's a lot of information, but
it's awesome information.
Again, it's just really specific. It really depends on what you want. As filmmakers, I honestly just wouldn't even worry about views. I would worry about, I'd be more concerned about your art and putting it out there for people. And even if 2 people watch it, it could be you know, somebody that's going to hire you in the future is one of them.
Again, awesome answer, and I really appreciate you putting out a strategy, a business strategy for getting views. There are those that believe views are important and that careers can be launched. However, I'm so happy that you said what you said, because it reminded me that I think it was Brad Bell, who's known as Cheeks on the internet.
I know Cheeks.
And wonderful. I think he does a wonderful web series called Husbands. And I think I asked him the same question. I said, how did you get views? He said, you know what? Forget views. Doesn't matter how many views you have if the right person sees it. And he said, Jane Espenson happened to see it, and that's how we partnered up. And Jane writes for Once Upon a Time and everything that Josh Whedon does and everything else. And then they enlisted people from Will and Grace. And, you know, I mean, so the whole thing kind of burgeoned, but it was based on the right person seeing it, not the number of views he had in the beginning.
Well, and also, because I know Cheeks, he's an amazing person, very creative, very wonderful guy. I will say for him, it's not even about that. It wasn't even about the right person seeing it. Back up a little bit. He told his story. He told the story that he wanted to tell from his point of view that he was passionate about, and that's where it all began. And that's why when Jane saw it, she was also passionate about that topic. So when I'm talking about doing things that you love and doing things you're passionate about and telling your stories your way, what you do is you open yourself up to you're beginning your network with people that are also interested in the same things that you're interested in. That's why when I was hosting, I would talk about Star Wars and The Walking Dead, because I love that stuff, Game of Thrones. And I started building a network of people that were similar to me, and therefore they supported my work. It wasn't like, you know, I wasn't talking about football over here, so completely different audience. But do what you love and do what you're passionate about, and stay true to telling the story that you want to tell, not what you think is going to be popular, because you're never going to get that formula right. Have it come from within and tell that story that you want to tell in the way that you want to tell it. And Cheeks is a perfect example of somebody that did it. And it did get popular because of that, but he had that foundation of passion and storytelling.
And I think the thing about passion is people can tell when you're passionate about something, whether it's in person and you're passionate about your craft, your art, your lover, whatever it may be. People know when you have passion and when you have drive, but they also can tell it in your project if it's a passion project. You know, because when you care about something, you treat it differently. There's an energy to it that you treat differently than if you're doing something for the cash or because you have to or because it's just something to do. So I really like that. The other thing is that, you know, nowadays there's a lot of, you know, 5-minute, 30-minute, now there's movies online, there's TV series that are, you know, 20 minutes, 55 minutes, whatever. But Cheeks started off with 1 or 2 minute episodes. That's all they were. They were very short, to the point, comedic.
Yeah, they were a few minutes, and it's funny because you mentioned web series, and Jane is very big on don't call them web series. It's digital television. It's digital content.
See, it's changing
because she comes from that world of this is the same thing as television. People, it's just a different medium. So he started off really small, and then now I think they're like 20, 30 minutes.
I haven't.
A lot longer. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Episodes. But they worked up to that. You know, then they found. And again, the reason why things are so short is because it takes a lot less money and time to produce a 1-minute thing than it does a 30-minute episode.
Right.
30-minute episode, I mean, you're basically shooting like a film. And so you've got to think about your resources, and you have to think about, again, I'm a business person, return on investment. What am I really putting out there, and what do I hope to get back from it? You can get just as much back out of a minute piece that's really amazing as you could a 30-minute piece. And you're just going to put a lot less energy into it. Not that energy's bad, but energy usually means money, and it's not worth it if you're just putting something out there for things to get seen. You can build up to that.
Well, I also think your return on investment for what you put into a minute, if it's really, really good, is going to be much, much larger than your return on investment for something that cost you a lot of money to make 30 minutes.
Exactly.
So budget-wise, I mean, and ROI-wise, you're doing well. Questions from the galley here? Yes.
Okay, so
this is Justin again.
This is Justin again.
I see you.
Kind of like off topic, but dealing with legal situations. Over the summer, I got like my first commercial gig on referral, and I did it for free just so I could get my name out there. But one of the commercials I made, it was for this heating and cooling company, and I made this joke about a kid sitting in a refrigerator trying to stay cold in this, like trying to stay cool in this really hot house. And there's this lady that wrote a letter to the company that I made the commercial for, saying that she wanted them to take the video down because she didn't want her son crawling into a refrigerator. And they didn't know what to do, so they took it off their page. They still kept it up online. But like when they told me that, my first reaction was like, okay, who the hell does this lady think she is, and how bad of a parent is she if she's not telling her kid not to hop in a refrigerator? But like, how do you deal with something like that?
Well, when you own companies, you think about things in liability terms a lot. So I will say, as a creator, I can understand why you're upset because they took down your commercial and you thought it was funny. But you'd be surprised how many things we put together we think are great until it goes out to a mass audience. And all of a sudden, somebody's kid sees the commercial when the parents aren't there, climbs in the fridge, and then now they sue them. So these are things that companies have to think about constantly. There's a reason why there's that warning on the McDonald's cup now, because somebody did it, and somebody got sued, and somebody made millions of dollars. And so companies just tend to be a lot more safe. Networks, companies, all of them, they're going to play the safety game a lot because they do have to consider how much there is to stake when they get sued. So they have teams of people that are like, yeah, I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't post that. So it's just something to be aware of that, again, once you, like, ideas are great. I have a filmmaker who makes the craziest short films, and I'm like, these would be so offensive if a lot of people, like the wrong people saw them. But, you know, they're funny, and I get you because I know you, but, like, they're kind of offensive. Again, you have to just consider that whoever you're working for does have the right, because they're the ones that are going to get sued, not you. Mm-hmm. So the way that I would handle it is just it's just one of those, oop, okay, it happened and there's nothing I can do about it. Maybe I can use that content to show in my own portfolio, but you can't really be upset with them because they have a lot more at stake in liability and getting sued than you do.
Well, I wasn't upset with them. I was more upset with this lady and thinking, like,
Yeah.
did she get off? But, like, so if I had the same edit and I just issued a disclaimer in there saying, like a warning, do not go into a refrigerator, and then sent that to them, would that work? Or
I think if you did it comedically, like, Jackass, look at Jackass.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to do that, right? Who's going to do any of those
Yeah.
things? But they say in the very beginning, but it's kind of in a funny way, like, don't try this at home. So you could even do that, and you can make it part of the story where it's like, kids, don't try this at home, and then the kids in there doing it, or something like that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't make it. If you put a serious disclaimer in there, there's probably something there. There's probably an issue there. If you have
kind of like approach it with like a comedy, like, because the commercial is intended to be funny.
Yeah.
So just issue a disclaimer saying, kids, don't try this at home, and then there's this.
You could say this is a professional stunt kid, and they only do this in the movies.
Yeah, something like that. Like, if you make it part of the story, I think it would work.
Right.
But yeah, a normal disclaimer, it would probably be like, well, why did they put this out there if they need to put a disclaimer on it? But I wouldn't think that lady's a horrible parent. Kids, you have kids do crazy stuff all the time when their parents aren't looking. They're not constantly watching them. So people do, like, I remember being a kid climbing into cabinets, and it's like, just because they were there, we do really silly things when we're children, and I think it's not a parenting issue with that lady. It's more of a and sometimes, honestly, when you get feedback, you're gonna get feedback on your work all day long. That's gonna be people's opinions, and you're going to be mad at them because, like, how dare they say things? Because I go through that all the time. Like, how dare they say my show sucked, blah, blah, blah. But then sometimes I have to seep through them, and some of the ideas that they put out there, it's like, oh, yeah, I didn't really think about that. Mm-hmm. That might be a problem. You never know. It could be a blessing in disguise. That lady could have saved the company from a kid actually doing it and getting sued, and that would have been a much bigger issue if a child got hurt, I would think. But, yeah, I think you could do something funny with that, with the disclaimer.
Yeah, I like that. That actually leads into another question I have.
Sure.
About, like, critique on a professional level. Because I'm wondering if it changes. Wow, we're getting some weird feedback.
We're getting some weird feedback here, and I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, so, like, in film school, I feel like some students don't know how to give, like, critiques. They'll pick something, and then they'll think they're being constructive. Like, someone critiqued that they saw a wall socket in one of my shots, and I don't know how it was constructive. And then sometimes someone will give me a really good idea, and I'm able to build off that. But I wondered if it changes as people mature and learn how to critique, or is it like that?
You're gonna get a network executive telling you're a fucking idiot. I mean, like, humans are humans. So I get a lot of feedback, good and bad. Luckily mostly good, but then you get YouTube comments. I mean, humans are humans, and the way that I personally deal with that is, it's like your own personal life. I never get offended by people's comments. I have I don't want to say thick skin, but I have a barrier. I'm very open, but I have a barrier of what I really let get to me. And I try to look at everyone's comments objectively, and sometimes they're stupid, and I literally just shut it off. I go, I don't need to look at that. That's not important. So I don't feel the need to make, I guess, how do I want to put this? You don't have to get so emotionally involved in everyone's critiques, because a lot of times they're not as emotionally involved as you. If it's your baby, you tend to love this thing, and anything anybody says about it, it's like, I'm so hurt. And I was like that, like my first year of my show, because it was so huge, I got a flood of comments, good and bad, and I would get so upset. And now I'm just like, oh, okay, that's actually a good idea. I should consider that. Or like, thank you, bye. And again, I don't have an emotional attachment to it, and that saves me a lot of energy, because at the end of the day, all of your concerns about people's comments and people, like, you know, what you're saying right now, is this person ever going to grow up? No, people don't. Humans don't. You're always going to hear stuff like that. And the more popular you are, the more shit you're going to hear. Sorry, I swear. The more crap you're going to hear, the bigger you get. So you just have to kind of find a way to deal with criticism and not take it so personally, if that makes sense. And just, you know, you don't need to put a lot of energy into the things that you don't think are helpful. And you certainly don't have to put energy into that person changing, because they're probably not going to. Just wave it off, like light socket. Okay, don't even need to think about that one. That was a weird comment, and be done with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
This is a very, very important topic for everyone here, because you are going to get critiqued. Again, look at the people that are the biggest stars out there. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people want to tell them how to live their life, want to tell them what to do, want to tell them that they suck or they don't suck, and you know, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that's a lot of stuff to deal with, but they find ways to do it.
Well, and they have a professional industry that tells them the movie would have been better had they listened to the reviewer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, yeah, you know, good to develop a thick skin. Of course, you're a warrior goddess with invisible powers and skills, so probably much easier for you.
No, I'm a very sensitive person, so it took me a really long time it's a lot of self-work, actually. It's funny, you think that a lot of things come from the outside, and that, you know, they have to change, they have to be fixed. That's never going to happen. You, like, at the end of the day, to be a human, you really have to deal with other humans. And that's what I've learned in all of my years of living, is how to deal with humans in every situation. And that in itself is a trait that they should teach in school. It's called psychology, but, you know, I would definitely take a psychology class, but I look at humans as like, okay, what is this person, like, if somebody gets mad at me, I'm like, are they really mad at me, or are they having a bad day? Or, you know, a lot of, especially as a boss, a lot of interpretation there. Do I need to get upset at them? You learn all of those things.
Again, I think that's marvelous, because you can't change the world, but you can change yourself, and you can change your approach, and you can change the way you do things.
Your perception, right. And you can change what you let in.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
Very cool, very cool. Now, another thing that you pointed out, which I think is excellent, because oftentimes we remind people to go back and look at IMDb credits, or to understand that somebody's been doing something a long time. I always say there's no such thing as an overnight success unless you're 8 years old, and then maybe. But otherwise, most people have a 10 or 15 or 20-year career path. And then you point out, and rightly so, that a lot of the sensations on YouTube have been doing it for many, many years.
Yeah.
So the one thing we all have to just embody and embrace is that if you want to be a success, you can't dabble. You can't dip your toe in it and say, I'm going to try it for a few weeks or a year or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to say, I'm going to establish a career path, and I'm going to work it until it works. And you may adjust it, but you're in for the long haul if you want to make it.
Yeah, that's actually a really important point. Is two things there that are absolutely necessary are you need to focus. So you need to decide. I mean, yes, we're all going to be jack of all trades. Am I really a writer? Not really, but I can if I need to be. I have that skill, but that's not my focus. So go with what you're the most passionate about and pick that route. And you can dabble in a bunch of other things as necessary if you need to edit your own piece, if you need to blah, blah, blah. But definitely focus on what it is that you love and make the decision to go in that direction. But at the same time, know that that direction is going to change all the time. You must stay flexible. For an example, I started off as an actress. I realized after about 8-10 years, like, I really kind of hated acting. I wasn't happy doing it.
Right.
I didn't love it. I was doing it here and there in Seattle, like once a month I'd have an audition. I was getting all these film roles. But then once I came to LA and it was my job, I was like, I don't really like this. Well, if I would have, and my ego, your ego will try to convince yourself, but I put so much time into this. I must do this thing. I paid for schooling for this. You could go to film school and turn out to be, an astronaut. Who knows? That's life. But you constantly have to be evolving with what your soul wants and what your passions are going to change. So I went from acting to hosting, which I love so much more. It's similar but completely different. And then I got into producing, and now I'm doing a bunch. I did an award show. Like, what? I never thought about that. But it's just because I allowed myself to evolve with my passions. You meet different people, you get different experiences, and each one of those little experiences changes what it is that you want to do. And some people start off as a director and end as a director. That's cool too. But just be open to your career changing, and don't be upset if you don't love it anymore. If there's something that you say, it makes me sick to even think about writing right now, just don't do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Do something else. Sometimes you just need some creative rejuvenation. But in order to get there, what I see a lot of people do is they go, I don't know what direction to head, so I'm just going to do everything. Don't do that. You're going to end up, if you don't focus on one thing, you're never going to go anywhere. And so there's no right or wrong direction. It's just sometimes taking a direction will lead that you're passionate about. Be like, well, cool, this is a direction I feel comfortable with. Even though I like 5 of them, I'm going to pick one right now. And go in that direction. And you'll be really surprised at how quick your career blossoms when you focus and you make those choices. And then again, just stay flexible, because you could loop back around and do something completely different with your life.
I love it. And I also think, and something that I didn't understand as a young actor in Hollywood, and that is you can't be so obsessed and compulsed by having your breakthrough that you don't live your life and enjoy it while you're going through. I know too many people who they wouldn't vacation. I wouldn't go to the desert and camp because I might miss an audition or something like that. You really need to live your life and live your life fully while pursuing your career, and enjoy the relationships around you and nurture those. I would never advise anyone to exclude. I mean, even like as I've said before, Elia Kazan says, learn all about life if you want to be a director. So live fully and enjoy it while you're pursuing your dreams.
Well, yeah, and if you, because a lot of you are creative, I'm creative, you're creative. What we don't think about is that, I'm a very meditational person, so I've learned, I need a break. I need a break. I need time off. And I've learned that by burning myself out. Right. I ended up, after the first year of my show, I was that workaholic. I constantly worked 24/7. The first year of my show, I ended up getting severe adrenal fatigue, which I would not recommend to anybody. It is the worst. It means that, basically your whole body shuts down. You're in fight or flight mode constantly. And the reason was I was never taking a break. And that is what's going to happen. It doesn't matter what age you are. What we forget is that one thing, your body needs a break. Your mind needs a break. It needs to, or it will not be able to continue to function. And then you're pretty much worthless. It's like the people that try to work 12-hour days. I'm sorry, but unless you're chopping firewood and you're actually being productive, you're not productive. Right. After 8 hours, your brain's kaput, and now you're just draining out the last bits of your energy. But also, as creative people, we get the best ideas when we take a break, and that's what people forget about. Is there's a reason why Thoreau went into the woods. It's he needed a break and he needed to be surrounded by nature, and that's where all of his brilliant ideas came from. And he wasn't in there every day work. I mean, maybe he was, but also probably drinking. But my point is that as creative people, when you feel stuck, that is when you actually have to stop. Do not try to power through. Do not go, I've got this thing I have to get done. Stop. Go outside, take a break. If you could take a full day off, awesome. Half a day, even an hour, even 10 minutes. Take a break and let yourself rejuvenate, because that is 100% where creativity comes from, are the downtimes. And all of my best ideas come from the downtimes. It's when I'm done and I give myself time off, or I'm on vacation or whatever, and then I'm like, oh my God, I have the best idea ever. Always. They'll never come when you're overworked and stressed, ever.
Well, that's an excellent point you make, and it is validated by science and medicine and everything else. Absolutely. In that Archimedes was puzzling over how to weigh the crown. The whole Eureka experience comes from You know,
Yeah.
his working at it, and then finally giving up and slipping into a bathtub and the water spilled over the edges. He went, eureka, and he ran naked to the king to say he discovered how to find out the weight of the crown, how much gold content was in the crown. The tip of the tongue phenomenon is, you know, you're trying to get a name and you can't get it and you have to give up in order to get it.
Yep.
But also, almost all innovation in any industry or business comes from outside the field of endeavor. So if it's the field of medicine, their discoveries while they're researching medicine oftentimes come when the researchers go off and they go golfing and something about aerodynamics and they go, oh man, we could make this.
Absolutely.
Because if your brain is stressed and your body's fatigued, you can't be creative because the very neural pathways you need to be most creative are shutting down because they're dealing with the stressors.
Yep. Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
your point,
100%, your body is focused on stress.
Yep. So your point and sharing your story is very, very important, not just to the students here and to all of us, but all of the viewers and all of the listeners who will watch this through time to take that message to their heart. Questions? We have about, just so you know, we've got about 25 minutes left.
Okay.
So ask away. What do you want to know? Oh, there you go. Yes.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Jake. I know we talked about this a little bit already, but I was wondering if there's any like kind of hidden keys to success, just like stuff that people wouldn't think about that goes into making a web series that you know. To make
He said web series.
Oh, sorry. Digital content. But yeah, just anything that that you know people wouldn't think about until they actually get into making it. That might help them with the success of that.
Let me ask you a question. What's your definition of success?
I guess that's open-ended. I guess maybe something enough to, you know, be a part of your income or make it part of your living, I guess.
Well, that is part of my answer is know why you're doing it. So some people do it because they want to make income on YouTube. So again, they will put in that time and spend years building their foundation, building their audience, building their network, and in turn, the more views they get, the more subscribers they get, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. That's one model because they wanted to make money, and YouTube is very much a ad-driven model. If you want people to see it, then you just make it and you put it online and you spend your time going out there and finding people who can watch it. So it really just, again, there's two completely different things, but it really depends on what you want out of it. Money is a big thing. People think, oh, I can't make money doing what you love. I make money doing what I love because I focus on not only the creative side, but the business side. So again, sitting down and saying, like when I did the Geekie Awards, I actually made a business plan for it. And I said, I want to do this thing, but what is it that I'm selling? Who am I selling it to? And how am I making money off of it? And what are the different ways that I can make money? And you really actually do have to sit down and think about that. If you are a director and you are not able to create a series or create digital content and you don't want to go a route of spending years and years building it up so you make ad sales, then you're going to have to go work for somebody else, you know, and then that's your route of making money. So again, you're still doing what you love, but you don't always have to be an entrepreneur. You don't always have to be the person that is driving the business unless you're a good business person. And there's times when I'm like, I suck at business and this is not working. I mean, take my show, for example. I'm like, okay, now it's getting bigger. I definitely need to change the business model. And you constantly just have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And you have to sit down and realistically say, how am I going to make money? And I mean, like, write down what it is you're putting out there and write down what money you're going to make off of it. And I don't think a lot of people do that. They put stuff out there and they just say, money's going to come. But I'm not, again, being very specific. It's like when I say focus on your career and choose the path. It's the same thing with money. You have to choose, how am I going to make money? How am I going to make money off of this? And again, a lot of creative people don't think about that. So I don't know if that answered your question. Again, a lot of things are, well, what is it that you want to do? I hate to answer in that way, but it's true. But yeah, I guess you really kind of have two choices there. You're going to use the internet to build an audience, in which case you're in for the long haul, and that's not a bad thing, but you are. Or two, you're going to use it as a place to present your materials that you're going to put elsewhere at film festivals, showcase to other people, and then in turn make money in that direction, if that makes sense. Those are the big ways that I see people using online.
Yeah, I like that very much. I want to ask you this. Imagine for a second that you've been called to counsel a young girl or man, boy, who's gotten off the bus in Los Angeles, and they go, I want the career that you have. I want to be creating digital content for online or television, or I want to work in film, but I somehow, or even an actor or wardrobe design, I want a career in Hollywood. What does that person who now appears in Hollywood, as you did, you came from the Midwest, what do they need to know or do to survive or to live while they pursue their career? What things would you consider important?
Well, in this situation, if somebody asked me, I've done this with people. If somebody said to me, I want your career, can you help me? I absolutely would help them. And the reason why is because somebody made it a point to come and ask me that. So the important thing there is always look, it's really good to have good examples. It's good to go out there and say, whose life do I want? And I've always been taught that by career coaches, by spiritual coaches, whatever, is find the life that you want and emulate that. I'm not saying stalk people, but
Right.
If you want to be Martin Scorsese, go look at everything that he's ever done. Look at his life. Look at how he did his life. Look at what he did to get where he is today and try to emulate that. So it's not a bad idea to sort of try to copy somebody's life or multiple people's lives that you look up to, because everyone starts somewhere. And the other thing is just knowing that you have to start somewhere. So that would be my first piece of advice is we would sit down. I mean, I do consulting for everyone, for careers, for brands. And when I sit down with somebody, I mean, I let them talk. I'm like, it's not about what I have to say. What do you want? Let me hear out loud what it is that you want right now in your life. And then we will devise a plan to start with the baby steps of what you want. You want to be a writer? Okay, well, maybe it's the best idea to, number one, write every day and start getting your work, together in case you do get to meet with somebody. Number two, why don't you go out there and get hired by an agency reading scripts? Because, hey, those are the agencies that you want to hire you, that you want to buy your stuff. Create relationships with them by doing work for them. That's huge. If you want to work as a director, somebody, like you said, go and do free work, because that's the best way to get experience. And more importantly, it's the best way to get to know people in the field. So you're not just sitting at home, like waiting for the phone to ring. Same thing with actors. If you're an actor, that's exactly why YouTube sort of took off, because these people were sick of waiting for phone calls, for auditions. They went out and they started making their own work. So I guess my advice, I don't know if anybody could have my career because it's like so specifically tailored towards me, but everyone's career will be very specifically tailored towards them. But I guess my advice would be, again, start making stuff, start doing stuff in the area that you want to do. If you want to be a writer, you should be writing all of the time. Don't talk about writing, don't think about writing, sit down and write and develop that craft. Number two, just start getting out there and networking with people, and not at parties. Like, those parties are such a waste of time. Like, going to parties like that, it's a waste of time. Don't do it. Don't be like, I'm going to get discovered at a party. You'll get discovered by going and doing hard work on someone's set, and working for free if you have to at first until they hire you. That's how you get to know people, by showing them what you can do. And that's absolutely what I did with my career. My first job, I was at a startup company as a designer, and I came on board, and I was an illustrator, actually. I was like a painter. I went to art school, and I came on board, and I saw that these guys all knew how to use Photoshop, and I'm like older than I look, by the way. You guys are like, Photoshop? That's been around for a while. But I sat down and I said, I want you guys to teach me everything. I want you to teach me Photoshop and Illustrator and Flash. I want to learn how to do animations. I want all of you guys to show me what you do. And I learned and absorbed all the information, and I did work for them in exchange. And I learned all of these skills, and at the end of it, they were like, oh, wow, like, you're really good. You know, you showed us what you could do, and now we want to hire you and work with you. So does that make sense? You just have to start somewhere. And I think there's actually a really great book. If you guys haven't read this yet, there's an amazing book called The War of Art, not The Art of War, The War of Art, and by Stephen Pressman, I believe. And it's all about the human nature of resistance, of saying that we want to do these creative things, but actually stopping ourselves by not doing them. We talk about them, we think about them, we tell people we want to do them, but we don't actually do them. So at the end of the day, the person that's going to have a successful career is the person that goes out and does it and takes baby steps and one step at a time. So that would really be my advice for somebody that got off the bus. It's like, well, go find yourself an apartment and write out what you want to do, and then go start doing that, even if it's for free.
Very cool, very cool. Well, it's been said that the millionaire or the successful business person is the person who does everything that the regular person doesn't want to do.
Right?
You know,
Yeah,
they do it.
They're crazy. We're crazy. We're just weird.
Any questions or comments? I have one if you don't. So, okay, a lot of recent attention to women in Hollywood and fees and equitable money for services rendered. But you're an entrepreneur and you started your own business. How has it been for you as a woman making your way in Hollywood? I mean, any thoughts that you want to?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be honest. In film and in film, there's a lot of red tape. That's just literally who you know if you want to do anything in that field. Unfortunately, now it's all blockbuster movies, and in television is kind of where everyone's working. Those two fields, it is still a little bit of a boys' club. Just being honest. Especially if you're a younger female, you get a lot of like, oh, you're so cute. I get a lot of like, you're a cute little damsel, let me come rescue you. I'm like, what do you mean I don't need rescuing? Let me punch you in the face. But that's where the warrior spirit comes into play. That's when you just go, no, thank you. But the reason I work in digital is because digital is where film and television are very much like these people that have spent years and years and years and years working up to their careers and kind of are very set in their ways. I'm not saying everyone is, but a lot of people are. The digital is more, it is really still the Wild West in a sense that anything goes. And when anything goes, it becomes more of a community. And I feel that a lot more younger people are working in the digital field. Therefore, they don't have that same sexism that kind of exists in some of these fields where these guys when they started off, it really was all guys. So you can't blame them for like, oh, women are now part of my job. I always say like, was somebody told me, they said I have like a 95-year-old grandpa that's really racist, but he lived in the South, and like you can't blame this guy. That's how he grew up. It sucks, but you ain't going to change him because he's 95. And it's kind of the same approach is when you're working with the younger generation, again, in digital, you really don't encounter a lot of the stuff that you do if you're going in film and television. But again, that's changing. So things are moving, things are progressing, things are changing a lot in all of those worlds. So for me, the only time I really have to deal with those issues, to be honest, is when I hire camera crews and production crews to work for me, and if they are all men and they are sort of, again, not has nothing to do with age, but they're stuck in their ways and they're like the boys club type of guys, they will not always listen to what I have to say, even though I'm their boss. They will not always do what I tell them to do. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not going to hire you again because I have the power to do that. And that's unfortunate for you, but, good luck. But you will still run into that a little bit for sure. But it's definitely changing. In the geek world, especially geek gaming, there's so much controversy about women that it's actually good because it's drastically changing the atmosphere. Conventions, geek conventions now are more women than men, which is awesome. So that's why I also love that world.
Wow.
Is because, I get to play with other females.
Wow. Well, but you also, I don't want to say inadvertently, but in your description of people working for you, if they don't listen and they don't do what you say and you are the boss, you're not likely to hire them. So in a roundabout way, that's a message to us also to pay attention to, provide value for the people we work for, especially when we're starting out and throughout our career.
Yeah. Being an entrepreneur, being the boss is the hardest job. I think a lot of people, we have a culture that, we live in a culture, especially in America, I'm talking about America, we live in a culture where we look down on people that make money. We look down, we all want it. We all want their success, but then we're sort of like, oh, that person must suck because they're in charge and I don't have what they have, and so therefore I hate them. It's really silly because it really does negate your success factor if you, again, I always say to people, if you're going to talk crap about money and you're going to say that rich people suck, well, then you're never going to get it.
Right.
You're never going to get it. It's the law of attraction. You're pushing it away. But really, being a boss, it is such a hard job, and I think people will always push their frustrations to the top of the food chain, right? When you're the boss, again, talk about being sensitive and getting criticism. You not only get it from the world, you not only get it from your networks or your studios or, your fans, but you also get it from your team. And I think Ron Moore said something really awesome. For those of you who know Ron Moore, Battlestar Galactica, Outlander, he said something like, if everybody at some point doesn't hate your guts, you're not doing your job right.
That's right.
And that's because, and somebody tried to argue with me on that, and they go, no, well, that means you're a crappy boss. I was like, because everyone's always going to get mad at the person in charge, always. So you just have to have a thick skin, and when people that I meet, respect me or look up to me, it's like, I'm going to hire you 1,000,000 times over because you're not giving me a hard time. You're not stuck in your ways. You're not listening to me when I tell you what to do because I'm the one that runs the company. And by the way, speaking of Ron Moore, a friend of mine did a brilliant documentary that's never been done before called Showrunners. And it's on, I believe it's on Netflix or iTunes. I think it's on iTunes for $10. And it's a documentary about all of these different showrunners. And it really shows what it's like to work in television. I would absolutely watch it. It is brilliant because it is much different than film. You have to be the producer and the writer and this and that and run everything and deal with the networks and then deal with your team and then deal with the fans. And I don't think those people work in that career very long because of the amount of stress. But it will show you what you're looking forward to if you want to work in television for sure. And it's really great.
What is it
Don't
called
let it
again?
scare you. But
Showrunners? The showrunner is the producer, writer, producer of television shows.
I have another quick question. We're talking about the film crews that don't respect you and how you deal with that. Do you ever find yourself telling someone, well, guess what? This was a terrible experience. You didn't listen to what I had to say, and now I'm never going to hire you again. Do you say that? Do you find yourself actually telling people that?
Yeah, I do.
Awesome.
I'm just an honest person. Again, it depends on how you work with people. I'm probably too blunt and honest, but every time we do a project, I have a post-mortem, and that just means that you speak to everyone afterwards, individually or in the team, about the experience. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? What was your experience? I really listen to people because sometimes you just never know. It could be they're having a bad day or whatever, but in that instance, I am very honest with people. I really do feel that people need to hear that, and I don't say it in a way like "screw you," you weren't listening. You have to be constructive. I say something like, just so you know, I really felt that there are so many times when I try to communicate with you where you actually weren't paying attention to me, and here is what happened because of it. I actually had, God, I don't want to say this on video. I had someone in a recent project not listen, and it was a ripple effect of things being late. Other people were super frustrated, and I had to sit down and talk to them and say, so because of this thing that you're doing, you are actually putting us behind schedule. You're costing us more money. And the team is very frustrated, and I need to let you know that because this is how you're working. And afterwards it's like, I'm just not able to work with you, or you just don't call that person again. If you want to be passive, just not talk to them ever again. But I don't know. I really feel like I try to be constructive with people because you just never know. They might need to hear that. Otherwise, maybe they won't get any more future jobs. I don't know.
Well, I think that's fair enough, and I also think that people need to understand where they are in the pecking order, and they need to understand that their department can hold up any other department. So if it's always like that weakest link in the chain thing can cost tons of money and delays and hours and problems for everyone. So you're going to remedy that however you have to remedy that as quickly as you can, and that may mean that the person is terminated.
Well, and also, I've definitely fired people. I've had to fire people. I fired people like weeks before my show. I'm like, this isn't working for anybody. But I will say this, it really being in charge. People don't listen to you when you're yelling at them or angry at them, even though you are, peed off. It really does, breathe, take a moment. Really compose yourself before you talk to these people. I do not ever react to people on the spot. I let it sit for a minute so that I can compose myself and really come up with something constructive to say in a way that's a little bit more compassionate. Because people in general don't listen when you yell at them, or when people tend to shut down. So if you do need to keep somebody on and you need them to change their ways, or you need, you're figuring out what's happening in their life or whatever. This event girl I work with was like in the middle of issues with her husband, and I had no idea. But, she was sucking at her job, and we had to have that conversation, and then you find out, and then they're aware of it. So there's so many steps you can take before you get to the point where you have to fire somebody, but sometimes you really do, and that's being the boss.
Well, I want to share something in that. And I completely agree with you. And it's taken me a lifetime of parenting to understand, if you yell at your children, they're going to shut down and they're going to resent you and they're going to tune you out and they're just going to think horrible thoughts about you. They're not going to go, wow, this person's really making a valid point. Maybe I need to change my ways. And because all of us have been children, most of us don't like it when people yell at us, whether they're yelling at us in the car next to us and giving us the finger. How many of you go, wow, that's really cool. Maybe I should adjust my driving because this person got pissed at me.
No, you immediately get angry.
So there's that. I was fired one time in my entire career. I was fired one time. And I think it was somebody else's department that was causing all sorts of problems. And we were just never going to get along. And the investment was either we take this guy out of his department or we have to scramble and get an entire new department. So the producer came to me at some point and said, this is a conversation I never thought I'd have, and I really don't want to have it with you. And I said, I can see what's coming. I think you've made the right decision. Mm-hmm. I think in light of the circumstances. Then I talked with the director later, and he's like, well, you should have stayed. And I'm like, it was the right decision for the circumstances.
Yeah. Well, you'll also, you guys will also run into times when you're like, you've taken on too many things. I meet these people all day long where people take on too many things and then they're not really committed to what you're doing and they're not really committed to you and they're not really interested. They're not in love with working on whatever you're working on. They're just doing it to get paid or they're just doing it to have work. And you'll run into that situation. There were times when I would take something on and I'm like, God, I really don't want to do this, but I need the money. And it shows. And I was let go from a contract job because the girl was like, you're just so not into this. And we had that talk and I was like, you know what? You're right. It's time for me to leave because you know that and I know that. And if I'm not doing something I'm passionate about, it's going to show and it's not worth it. It's not fair to the person that you're working for also if you're not into it. So keep that in mind. Once you're the boss, you kind of go, I'm never doing that to somebody, because you'll run into a lot of people that are messing with you. But it does go the other way as well, is just be conscious of people and what they need and their time and their jobs and what they're hiring you for, and do a good job. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Let them hire somebody else.
Wow. Well, this has been an exciting time, and our time is really up. Is there any last question or comment? I just want to. Then what I'd like to do, Kristen, is first I'm going to tell you that when we finally say goodbye, we'll call you back shortly thereafter for a postmortem. I call it a debriefing, but I like your term. But no, thank you very much. And I'd like to let you have the final closing word, and then we'll say goodbye. And
she is the final closing word. So I guess we had a few questions, and we've got a lot of awesome inspirational stuff here.
This has been marvelous.
My advice to you guys would be to just go out and do it. And a really super quick story about a guy. If you're all familiar with Richard Branson, the guy that basically owns the Empire Virgin. And this guy, I don't know if anybody knows this, but this guy started off, I'm probably going to get the story a little bit wrong, but he started off, he was in an airport, super young, like 20-year-old, I think, in an airport, and he was trying to get a flight to the Virgin Islands, and he couldn't get on a flight, and all the flights were booked. So what he did was, he said, okay, I'm going to go use my ingenuity here. I'm going to go and I'm going to hire a private jet. And he stood there with a sign, because all of these people were blocked from going to the islands. And he stood there with a sign, and he's like, you can get a ride on my plane that I rented for X amount of money. And he filled the entire plane, and he got this private charter jet. He got all of these people from the airport to the islands, and that was the very beginning of his company. And I absolutely love this story, because here's a guy in a situation where normal everyday person, I just want to go on vacation or whatever it is I'm doing, came up with this brilliant idea out of the blue and just did it. It spawned his entire career from there, and obviously he's like a multimillionaire, but also one of the most inspirational entrepreneurs you will ever meet if you ever get a chance to read his books and watch his videos. But the point there is, especially if you have that instinct to do something and you feel the calling to do something, that's the universe telling you that you need to do that thing. And that is absolutely how you're going to start your path to success and to your career and to whatever it is that you want to do.
Wow, great. great finish to an incredible discussion. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, of course.
You have, as always, been fabulous. I should let the viewers know that we've done a couple radio interviews that are now podcasts on iTunes before on Rex Sikes Movie Beat, and I'm sure we'll do them again. But thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Of course.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thank you kindly. So I'll let you say goodbye, and we'll be off here. So
All right, bye,
I'll call you back
guys.
in a bit. Bye-bye.